back to the Real Recovery Show. Our episodes air every week, and we interview people about their story or some of the stuff that they're doing in our community, or both. I have met some very interesting people and have heard some amazing stories, and today I am so excited to interview EC, which stands for Erlinda.
Erlinda Carroll.
Erlinda Carroll.
Yes.
But everybody generally calls her EC, which is such a cute nickname. And I met her. I think I've actually seen you before, maybe at Keeping It Real too. I feel like I've met you before.
And the meeting space. And the recovery store. And the recovery store. Yes.
But she had asked me to speak at one of her sober livings, and I didn't know who she was from her asking me, and I didn't know what it was or anything. And then I went to Vegas Stronger and to the graduation. And almost every time somebody got up, this incredible ceremony, to speak at the podium for a second with, and get their graduation certificate and the medallion that I made for them and everything. It was so amazing. You would hear, "Clean shot." And I was like, who's clean shot? What is that? I was like, oh, this really sounds like a powerful thing, this clean shot. And then what a cool name. And so you'd think with all the time I've spent doing what I'm doing, I would know all the people and all the things that are going on. But honestly, this Las Vegas is just so fortunate to have some really powerfully focused, motivated people doing some amazing things to help people heal. And so I walk outside after the ceremony's over, and I'm with a friend of mine, and then next thing you know, I'm standing in front of this beautiful lady, and I'm like, I should interview you. And she's then we realized, or I realized, you already knew, where I was speaking. There was a time I would have felt so stupid, but I didn't. I was like, oh, thank you, God, for putting that together. Because when you asked me, whenever somebody asks me to speak, I always just ask intuition, is this a yes? I don't want to qualify what, who, where, what. I didn't know anything. You never mentioned it. You never said clean shot. You can go through all of our messages. Yes. And not that I wouldn't know what that was anyway. And it was so powerful. So then I go and I speak at your place, and the energy there, it was so powerful. And we had already talked about her. She was already on schedule we were already talking about you coming and recording with me, and I'm so happy we get to do this. I'm so excited. So, and you're 12 years, you're coming up on 13.
I'm coming up on 13 years. Thank you. First of all, thank you, God. Thank you, Lisa, for having me. This is an honor and a privilege, and I'm truly grateful to be here. So yes, it's going on 13 years. 13
years in April.
April 22nd of 2011 is my sobriety date.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes, that's the day that changed my life and took it in a different direction.
That's wonderful. And so we're going to do what we normally do. Definitely want to hear about Clean Shot, because you're a founder of it, and you have partners, but you're the executive director, right?
My partner and I are both founders,
okay,
and I am the executive director.
Because it's a nonprofit.
That is correct.
And it is, it's up north.
It's actually east.
It felt like a drive for me.
Yeah, northeast.
Because I was stuck in traffic.
Lake Mead area.
Lake Mead area.
Cary, off of Cary and Lamb.
Right.
Also Lake Mead and Hollywood, and Lake Mead and, Nellis and Betty Lane.
Okay.
So.
And you have 106 beds.
106 beds, yes.
106 beds.
Yes.
106 beds.
And we started with one apartment, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, one.
Oh man, we're gonna get to that too. I was blown away when I heard how many beds they had, because I don't know how often do you really at full capacity though? Are you often near it?
Often.
Oh God, that's crazy. That's amazing, the amount of people that you're helping, and just being at Vegas Stronger and having so many people scream clean shot. That must have made you feel so good.
It did. It did. That's a mantra that just came by the Spirit. I just happened to be in a meeting, and I said, clean shot, and everyone else followed. So that's how that
came to be. I love that.
So
I love that.
Yes.
Okay. So as we normally do, because we want to hear your story, we want to hear about you, and we want to know what it was like for a little EC, although I don't know is that your maiden name or your married name?
So EC is my initials for Erlinda Carroll. My birth name is Erlinda Carroll.
Okay.
And
so, it's always,
so when I was little, they called me Bloop Bloop and Lynn and Linda and sometimes Erlinda. So I was called all kinds of things.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that when somebody said my full name that I was in trouble. So I always wanted to change it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be in trouble.
I actually hated my name.
Yeah, so did I.
Growing up. I hated everything about myself growing up.
Yeah, so did I.
You know.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So, okay, so let's start there. Let's just share a little bit about what it was like, the thinking, you know, some of the things that you felt were key pieces that you later found out really had a part to play in your alcoholism or addiction.
Okay, so growing up was a very difficult upbringing. I come from two races, black and Mexican, so that had a big part in how I felt about myself because it was two different cultures, and when I went to either side, it was a different experience. So I was either not enough of this or too much of that. So I kind of went into this place of like, where do I fit? And then my father had abandoned ship at about when I was around 7 years old. So I don't really have a lot of memories of him before that. But around 9 years old, you know, he re-entered back into my life. But my household was at first on the Mexican side where there would be like 16 kids and 4 adults. And, you know, we barely have anything to eat and no one watching us. So it was really difficult in that situation. There wasn't much guidance. And then I'd go on my dad's side and there was my grandmother, and which I call Granny, and my aunts and my uncles, and it was just a different experience. And on my dad's side, they would have, you know, get-togethers every week, so it was more like a family unit there. And then on the other side, it was just kind of, you know.
Oh, really? It's like, that's so interesting. My ex-husband was mostly Mexican, and they're very family-oriented. Like, everybody was always, like, everybody together. So that's interesting. I would have predicted it the opposite, you know?
Well, it wasn't that it wasn't family-oriented, because we did have a close family on that side, too. But there were no men. There were no men. There was just basically single women with all these kids.
Interesting.
And it was really fun because we played. You know, kids love having other kids around, so that was the good part about it.
Yeah.
But when I was around 9 years old, my mother tried to commit suicide, and I was already exposed to being molested on a previous time when I visited my grandmother. One of my aunt's boyfriends, she left us with him, and he molested me. I was around 6 years old then, and so when I turned about 9 years old, when my mother tried to commit suicide, I was already in a different kind of mindset. It wasn't like a kid anymore.
Yeah.
I was very observant.
Fast.
Yeah, I was very observant and hyper vigilant at that point. So I stayed close to my mom, and she was like mentally going through a lot. She herself was abused as a kid, so it was.
So how many siblings did you?
So I have an older sister who was living with my grandmother, so she wasn't with us.
Okay.
And then my brother, who was with my mother and I.
And he was younger than you.
And he was younger than me, correct. And then my father ended up having 2 more children after that, which came later.
How do I know this? Because you played the hero child, which symbolizes the oldest, but you're not technically the oldest, but you felt like the oldest. And now your mom can't be the mom, and so who's the adult? Because she's shut down from depression. And so now you have this hypervigilance, this overdeveloped sense of responsibility that usually comes with that role. And that is why I think you and I have so much in common, because we both had that same thing. And I recognize that. So was your mom went through depression, your dad obviously had some stuff going on as well.
So my dad really didn't have a clue. He kind of just was doing his thing. He's a professional drummer. Okay. So he was on the move with his music career, and so we didn't really get to see him much. I did have conversations on the phone with him, and then she did send us to see him when I turned around 11. But when she tried to commit suicide, that kind of changed the trajectory of our whole life. And she got a hold of my grandmother when she got out, my granny, my dad's mother, and she sent for us. So that she took us out of my mother's side of the family,
Wow.
and we all went out to Arizona, Tucson, Arizona.
So you ended up getting. So your mom didn't come with you?
Yes,
Oh,
my mom.
She came with.
She sent for all of us.
Oh, how?
Because my mom told her she tried to commit suicide.
And so she said, "You and the kids come."
Correct.
How beautiful.
Yeah, come get your life together. And so we
How
moved.
beautiful.
It was very beautiful. We went out there. It was amazing. And you know, I
Thank
started.
God for
I
that.
started. Yes,
Yeah.
I started to feel this joy in my heart. You
Pressure
know,
was
like,
off of
okay.
you a little bit.
Pressure was off. My mother still was going through her things. She was always so angry and depressed and just feisty and you know, she was always yelling and there was no communication. You know, how's your day? You know, what are you learning in school? Who's your friends? It was just kind of like this very stale household. And she would come home and she would come in storm and she'd slam the door and like, where's my coffee, and checking our chores, and it was just that kind of an environment, you know.
And so, did you look into like her childhood and what she went through?
You know, I didn't really care. I didn't really care when I was younger.
Yeah.
It was
But
how
later,
she was.
Later.
Yes, later I did. Later I had to. I had no
Yeah.
choice but to, because I needed some understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
I had to do that
understand.
too.
Yeah, and I was like her little servant, so
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Oh my God!
Oh,
so
man,
much, like I used to joke around like, did you have kids just so they would do stuff for you? Because I feel like Cinderella.
Yeah, I was doing laundry. I could cook a full meal, clean the entire house by age 9.
Yeah.
And then
I
I
would
was-
take a
I was
stool
looking
and
for
I'd
like-
go up on the counter, even though I wasn't tall enough to cook. And
Absolutely.
I would cook like this with the pan. You know, like, dude.
Yeah,
I
it
had
was.
a feeling we had a lot in
Yeah,
common.
so much responsibility. But then when I'd leave the house and have to go to school,
Yeah.
I was enduring being bullied at school. And
So was I.
Yeah, going through
fascinating.
so much, and my self-esteem was so low, and it was just crazy.
Do you feel, do you feel like, so for me, you know, I just told my story the other night, and I was talking about how, you know, it wasn't that the kids bullied me, it was that I had no self-esteem and no strong sense of like, I don't know, empowerment or whatever, I don't know what the word is, that I just did, like, I couldn't and wouldn't really like do whatever it took to not be bullied. You know, I was so shame-based that I allowed that to add to my narrative about myself. I had my own stuff before that even happened about my worth, that I really felt like I couldn't deflect it. I couldn't act like it wasn't hitting anything, because I already had stuff it stuck to. You know, when they bullied me, when they made fun of me, you know, when they shunned me. You know, I wasn't allowed past the first 2 rows of the bus, otherwise there would be a whole big thing about how Lisa's trying to sit in the back of the bus, you know, and it's humiliating, you know. So do you feel like, as there was a question in there, you know, chicken or the egg, do you feel like I mean, obviously these things are cumulative and they end up shutting us down more, but do you feel like that you were made fun of or bullied because they could, because you didn't have, because they could get away with it, because you didn't have that presence like what you have right now? Like, hell, anybody can do anything to you now. But and me neither, right?
That
like,
is
screw
correct.
That. Like, haha. But at the same time, like little Lisa, you know.
Yeah, so I was
Couldn't do it.
when I got molested, I didn't say anything to anyone. And then shortly after we moved to Arizona, my father's brother started molesting me. So I had all these secrets.
Did he know that you were molested?
No one knew. I didn't say a word until I was like 31 years old. So I had all these secrets that I was holding inside, and then acting out in these behaviors sexually before I was even in puberty.
Right.
So there was a lot of that going on. And then my mother's mother was prejudiced, and she did not like black people. Well, she was afraid of black people. I wouldn't say that she didn't like them. I would say she was afraid of them.
Yeah.
Because of another experience that I witnessed, and I got to see it. But My sister, my older sister, she's all Mexican, so she's not even, we don't have the same father. And so when they separated us, because we loved each other, you know, but they separated us, and we didn't understand that, but we always got a chance to see each other because my mom would make us go over there with her. And I didn't like going because of my grandmother. She would say things to me that you just don't say to a child, and I knew that that wasn't right. But I had so much confusion by the time I started really realizing things in school, you know, and yes, I didn't have any defense. I was just a shell of a person, and then I started to live vicariously through my brother. My brother was the one who was in sports. He got the accolades. He was the performer, like all of that. And although I did sing, because I love singing, I was singing from a very young age. He had the ability to go out with it and just bring it out. Whereas me, I was shy. I didn't want to show anyone. And, you know, I was very to myself. But when he was around, I could come out and be vibrant and, you know, whatever I thought I was.
Interesting.
Because he was like kind of like my protector, you know, and we shared a room till I was like 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, we grew up pretty poor, you know, so we had that factor too. It's not like it was a big deal when I was younger, but as I got older, it became kind of a bigger deal. Because everyone had name brand shoes and I had, you know, the shoes that weren't. So, you know, I started to internalize value and, you know, money and what that truly meant, and, you know, who we truly were as opposed to who other people were, and that we didn't have a father in the home. Like all of that stuff came out later. But, you know, I had gone through so much trauma quietly by myself.
It gets really crowded in our consciousness when we're keeping all these secrets and we have all these ideas about ourselves that we can't process. I mean, in recovery, like we're constantly clearing all that stuff out and processing it with another person or writing or whatever we need to do. And like, but before we had those tools, like we had no real understanding of like what's of value to hold on to consciously and what's not, you know, like. And so as we go through these experiences, which we have eerily a lot in common, we develop like this fighter, this survival like persona, and we think that that's who we need to be. And also, I also had a confusion about, you know, the value of being sexy when I was that young because of the things that happened to me, and that, you know, that actually was one of the things that was going to give me love and no abandonment. If I'm beautiful enough, like people are not going to leave me, which is so not the truth. And then like if I'm sexy, I can use that, you know, to be able to like get what I need or whatever. Like I still have pieces of that, because when it's the earlier something starts in our programming, the more involved it is in all the other programming that develops as we get older. So, you know, turning around and finding that there's something driving the bus in some character defect or bad behavior, oftentimes we go all the way to find what the root is, and it's some experience that we had that starts the whole narrative of why we need to even be who we think we need to be in the world. You know?
Correct. And it was like on both sides, though, I experienced where it would be work through the week, you know, this dry place, and then on the weekend it was like, we're going over to Granny's or we're going over to so-and-so's house, and you know, they'd break out the alcohol and the weed, and it would be parties on and everybody's happy, and it was like everything was swept and nothing was ever talked about. So I had this skewed perception of what life truly is, and the ability to actually communicate anything about myself, let alone like what's your favorite color, and be like, all of them, you know. It's like, you know, I couldn't choose for myself, and I had this really mixed place inside, you know, about my father, because when I'd go to my father's house, it was peaceful, and he didn't yell, and he was calm, and he talked to us, and he, you know, when he spanked us one time in my life, he explained why he spanked us, and I was like, wow.
Did she hit you?
My mom hit me all the time. My mom was very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, and physically abusive. And, you know, but I loved her. And so I was so mixed up.
You also felt like,
so
well, so
confused.
for me, because you're so much like me, I'm going to offer you this. Like, there was this double-edged sword, you know. Part of the love is, part of the affection, the experience of it is trying to help her to be the mom that we need so that we can go back to being the kid, which never happens. And then the other part of it is feeling sorry for it and feeling a sense of responsibility, you know, like, and these are not really the love that we need, but they end up, those two things end up coming up later in life as we choose people who can't be available, and we end up being the person who tries to fix a person.
That's right.
Or like we, you know, we take hostages or victims and like, and whatever, and like, and then we end up starving all over again, and we don't know why. You know, why is it that we're attracting these situations until we do this work? You know, and you sound like you know, it's so funny, you know, because here you have somebody telling their story, and it seems like, oh, you know, it makes total sense, but to everybody who goes through it until they do the work, it does not make sense at all. It's easier for us to talk about it now with all this insight, because we did work to find out, you know, what was really going on, and why have I been the common denominator in all these dysfunctional situations? You know, why do I react like this? What is the scary story? What is the shame tape that I'm running on? Where did I get that from? You know, and how do I get to forgiveness? And how do I stop, you know, being easily manipulated, you know, to help a person that maybe I'm not supposed to be helping? Like, it's a work in progress, especially when
it is. We
end up in helping professions and situations. Yes. It's like, well, class is always in session, isn't it?
It absolutely
is.
You know, and I'm so grateful today for all of the experiences that I had, because it taught me how to truly care for people and how to truly, like, give my all in situations. And now my voice is loud. You know, I just became this really loud, obnoxious person who was kind of like oblivious to anything that was something of feel, something that was really heartfelt. And I lived this facade, and I was just a shell of a person. But I could always play that oblivious card, you know, just kind of turn my head, act like I don't see, I don't hear, and
go
just
right past
breeze
normal,
through whatever it is.
Any kind of balance where we can say what we mean and mean what we say, but not say it meanly. And we go to the other extreme where it has so much energy because we need to be heard, because we weren't heard. We did the don't talk, don't trust, don't feel from our childhood, and we were ignored when we did try, or judged for whatever it is we were bringing to the table saying we needed. And then now it's like this emancipation happens, and there's like, we're like loud, like as if it's like, you know what I mean? But then in recovery, right, the energy that fuels that rocket of us being like, you know, like, or in my relationship, like, I don't feel heard, like, ends up healing little by little by little. The stuff that, the energy of the stuff that we stopped when we weren't telling people while it was happening, the words we weren't using, we start to let little bits of it out, you know, with these little teeny buckets of our efforts in recovery. And it's beautiful. And as we make peace with it, our voice is still strong, right? But it's not always softer, and more God powered.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing. You know, so when I took Full Flight from Reality, I got indulged in drugs, and I did the alcohol.
How old were you when you first started doing that?
Man, it was elating. Like, it was comforting and powerful. You know, I could live in here. I was 15 years old, and I smoked weed. And then that went into smoking cigarettes, and then drinking alcohol. And it started, like, you know, once in a while, then it started every weekend, and then it just progressed.
Yeah, weed was good for me too, for numbing, taking it down a notch. Because You know, I was all or
Yes.
nothing. I was either super shut down or I was too much, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I needed, everything I ever did was to numb out, be somewhere else, but not up in somewhere else, not the life of the party necessarily, but just able to handle, you know, able to
deal with hanging out. Yes.
groove with it, you know.
Yes.
How old are you again?
I am actually 53.
You are. You're
Yes.
my age. Oh my God. When's your
Yeah.
birthday?
November 9th.
Nice. Mine's June 12th.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you just turned.
53.
Okay, so
Yes.
you're teensy bit older than me because I'm 52.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So, okay, so so you were drinking and smoking
Yes.
pot and
Drinking and smoking pot, and then I ended up moving back here to Las Vegas with my father.
How old were you then?
I was 17,
Okay.
actually 16, turning 17, and I went to Valley High School, and I ended up dropping out of high school because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I went and got a job, and I came home and I said, Dad, I'm going to drop out of school and I'm going to get a job. And he was like, okay. So it was nothing, you know, and I kind of set the tone for my own life, however I saw fit at that point with my father. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that he didn't really know me that well and hadn't been around me enough to have like that relationship where he could be like, no, you're going to go to school.
Right.
You're gonna, you know, he just kind of was, you know, lenient and just supportive.
But I mean, was he mentally invested with any of the kids?
So
his kids?
my sister, who is 9 years younger than me, yes, and then her mother ended up leaving her with us, and so she started to endure the trauma from that. Her mom just up and left all of us, and it was me, my brother, and my cousin, and my little sister.
Interesting.
So I took the mama role
Yeah,
with
I knew
her.
that was coming.
So it was like on and cracking again.
Yeah.
So that ball just spiraled. But my other sister, she is 25 years old. So we're literally 20 some years apart.
Wow.
But yes, he was there for her too. And then later on in her life,
Because he was there for the younger years of hers, but he wasn't really there for a lot of what was going on with you.
Correct. So it was like sporadic.
Gotcha.
And I watched his encounters with
He
my
probably
brother.
saw you as an adult now. He just saw you as, okay.
And I was so
honestly,
independent.
You were already an adult when you were
I was
6, 9 years old.
9 years
11,
old, correct. And I was so independent.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, you know. I
Yeah.
just was always like,
My mom
why
would-
doesn't he pay attention to me?
My mom once said to me, you want to be treated like an adult? Fine, you're an adult. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not an adult. I was really, really young. But that's it. So beautiful. So now you're in Vegas. And so when did the alcohol or pot, when did the combination of self-medication
So
become
meth came into my life at 21 years old.
21, okay.
And that was it.
Yeah. How long were you doing that for?
So I did it from 21 to about 24.
Okay.
I went back home to my mom, got my shit together, and started my life again. I ended up getting married. I got
And you
pregnant.
did it just dry, or did you have help?
I was dry, but I did go to church.
Okay.
I started going to church.
So
and
there was a turning to God in it.
that is correct. I
Yeah.
had a experience with God because I didn't believe in God. At that point, I was really angry, and I was like, "F God, He doesn't exist."
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I can
And
still
my
see
brother
that.
started going to church first,
Okay.
and I seen a change in him. So I was like, you know what? If you're really real, you got to show me. So I started getting these.
The brother you were the closest to.
Yes.
I
started
see.
getting these experiences.
Interesting.
Yes, one-on-one with God. So I was like, you know, wow. And my eyes started opening up to, you know, the possibility of God. So I started going to church. And then I read the Bible for the first time with a sister. She came to the park and read a scripture with me. And the scripture was, I chose you, you did not choose me. And when I read that, something inside of me just
Oh, I love
and
that.
I literally ran home, grabbed my bags, and left with her. And I hung out with the sisters for like the next 3, 4, 5 years. And so when I turned 39, I had got pregnant, and I lost my son. And when I lost my son, I was devastated. And so I felt those feelings again. Like, how is this possible? I was just beginning to feel like I was normal. you know, getting pregnant, having a job, living my life
during that
spiritual.
whole period where you were, you know, you were going to church and you were going to a deeper place with yourself, and you were staying abstinent from drugs and alcohol, right? Alcohol too, or just,
everything,
okay.
cigarettes, alcohol,
okay.
weed.
And then, you know, feeling like, okay, this is building your faith in God, and you're doing all this thing, and then when you lose, I'm so sorry, you're, that's very hard to go through. I can't even imagine. That brought up your faith in God and in all things being good, and I'm sure it kicked up your snow globe big time. But during that time, in the middle of that, were you doing any kind of like therapy? Were you doing any kind of like work where you were going and like looking at your stuff?
That's the thing. There was none of that.
That's what I was wondering.
It was just this vague, you know, outside myself type of experience, you know, going to church, tithing, you know, never really any real conversation about what's going on, and just kind of an onlooker as to what's going on outside of me. So there was none of that.
Yeah, I really feel like, because this comes up when people go, you know, what constitutes something being addiction, etc. Because people can be relatively, they could be abstinent, they could be whatever you want to call it, dry or something. I was dry for several years and then drank again, and I had the presence of a higher power working in my life every day consciously, you know, but I had old ideas. I had unhealed stuff. I had unearthed stuff, unfelt stuff. I had traumas. And while, you know, I was able to get some things together and make it through, it wasn't without suffering and struggle, but I kept, you know, having a better attitude about it. But at the end of the day, when alcohol became a solution again, even for the moment, and then also other addictions started going, well, then you could do me too. But when that happened, I was without defense. I didn't have any kind of tools and recovery yet to really be able to like deal with the real issue, right? Which is
correct. As soon as I lost my son, and I spent 2 weeks mourning, crying my eyes out, and I had to pick up and go back to work. Immediately I picked up weed. Immediately. That pain was too much. It was unbearable. And without question.
And honestly, you know, like, you know, I did all these things and you did all these things. We weren't aware of at the time a better way, and so this was the best we could do, and we did it so that we could cope.
Yes.
We did it so we can make it. You know, I mean, like, for what it's worth, it's a creditor, you know. It's like you think, okay, I'm gonna use alcohol or drugs, and it's gonna help me, and it helps you, but there's a price. There's a price that it takes. It gives and it takes, and it gives and it takes more. And so, but we do realize it gives. You know, we do realize in the moment that we felt like we needed it, but we don't realize the price we're going to be paying. And if we do, we don't really care, because right then and there we're in survival mode without tools.
Correct. And so I immediately went back to pot, and then I decided to come back here to Vegas. When I came back here to Vegas, I got, you know, a job, and I got an apartment, and I moved all my things out here, and a fresh start. I got a really good job too. And so I ran into an old friend. It's always an old friend. Yeah. And she's like, let's do some meth. Yeah. And immediately, like, without question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And within a few months, I had lost my place. I lost my job. And I was out there, you know, doing what we do on a mission. And that took me on a 9-year run. And at the end of that run, I was looking at 5 to life.
Wow, so stop right there. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break to find out what that was about. And please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or are meant to replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll see you in a bit.
Space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting, we walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal.
Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Before the break, we were talking about what happened at the end of your active addiction.
Yes.
And you were looking at 5 to life.
5 to life, yes.
For
stealing a car. So, for an habitual criminal, really.
Okay.
I had been to jail 23 times.
Wow.
At Clark County Detention Center. I had been to city probably about 8 or 9 times.
For theft?
For various things,
okay.
You know, paraphernalia, prostitution, possession,
gotcha.
Trafficking, you name it, like it's on there. And I went to prison for 17 months.
Ooh.
So when I went to prison, I got out and I had made arrangements to go back home. I reconnected with my family because I didn't connect with my family for 5 years when I was out there in active addiction. I was like, F them, F this life. You know, I had no turning back. So I went to prison for a case that I failed to, you know, participate in.
Yeah.
Right, because I was getting high. And so when I finally did that time, I reconnected with my family, and I had a plan to go back to my dad's and get my stuff together. And when I got out of prison that night...
So you reached out to them while you were in prison?
I did. I reached out to them, and they were like, well, come home, get your life
together. So do you feel like was the prison at the... Well, you were facing 5 to life, but...
Well, I went to prison, I did my time, reconnected, gotcha. And I was scheduled to go home to my dad's. But when I got out, I had an NDF check from working NDF for $25, and I walked across the street to the 7-Eleven, and I got a 40 ounce of Old English, chugged that down, and immediately I was off and running. Right around.
So when you were in prison, I mean, other than getting back with your family, there was still no conscious connection with the, you know, I really need to make sure that alcohol and drugs are not happening anymore. There wasn't, the click didn't happen yet.
No connection.
Because some people do have that in prison.
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. It was just, I need to get my, you know, not come here anymore.
Yeah.
There was, like I said, oblivious was my card.
Yeah.
You know, I used to call myself the oblivious one, you know, when I was new in recovery because I was just so blind.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And so closed. Like,
yeah.
I used to hide in my big toe, you know, just go down there and hide and just kind of breathe and watch out and see what's happening.
That's interesting.
Yes. Like it was a safe place for me.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, yes. So when I got out, like I said, I went out, and that took me on a 9-month run. I stole a car because I was tired of walking, and I got pulled over, and they took me, and the judge was like, okay, you don't get it. You don't get it. And they afforded me an opportunity to go to a drug court.
Okay.
And that's when my life changed.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
All right. And so you started your recovery process.
I did.
And so just drug court, no rehab, no nothing like that, just that?
Yes.
Okay.
And they gave me a plan of action where I needed to be, who I needed to see, who I needed to talk to. And so I had
kept you accountable.
That is correct. And I had that schedule. Or I could go to prison.
Gotcha. And then did you have that sheet that you had to bring places and have them sign?
Yes. And I had already been to prison, so I knew what that was like. That was the loneliest place I had ever been, where somebody was right next to me all the time.
Yeah.
And that right there was kind of the conception that I had in my mind to kind of jar something, to wake me up.
Yeah, like that was the image, one of the images in your rearview mirror that said, I can't go back there.
That is correct.
That's great.
That is correct.
That's great, because some people don't get that. Some people find that they felt more, like they felt like they were not having to deal with as much in prison. You know, same thing with psychiatric parts of hospitals or wards or stuff, that people can end up thinking it's better in than out.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you didn't get that.
Yes, and so I went back to my bunk and prayed, and I heard my spirit say, write a letter to the judge. And I wrote a letter to the judge telling her about my son and how I lost my son, and that's where I really truly lost myself. And she could see my record started there. Wow. So I think that's where the grace came in, and I knew that it was God that was moving. And because I had this schedule to adhere to, you know, it made it really easy for me. You know, I was good at following instructions. Go over there, do that, do this, bring me this, bring me that. You know, I was good at that. You know, so that's what I did.
You know, that's really interesting, because my friend Kelly was on, and she was facing, like, I think 18 years or something like that in federal prison. And there was, you know, we were talking about prison as a state of mind, and how, you know, when we had structure, we felt safer. But when we didn't have structure, when it was up to us to do whatever, I mean, it's kind of funny, because even with like pain medicine, you know, if it's an as needed, I'm screwed.
Right.
But if you're telling me, well, it still would have to have somebody else hold it. But then there was some structure to it, and because we grew up in chaos, we grew up in not knowing where we started and where we stopped. You know, we didn't have parentals in there really keeping that kind of boundary for us, so that we could focus on just our experience of being a child. We didn't have the healthy structure. You know, we didn't have healthy discipline. What we had was, you know, abuse, neglect, emotional reactors, you know, and people who aren't there, you know. And so there is something to say, you know, that like, even like when you see some plants, they need support. They'll actually have a stick next to the plant, and they'll have this rope attached to it to keep that plant growing in the right direction until it's strong enough in its roots to be able to, I'm getting the chills, until they're able to actually be able to stand as a tree. And like our little like fledgling plants that we were as kids, man, we were like, who do I need to be? You know, how do I protect myself? I would walk into my house and I would literally check the temperature of everybody's emotion to find out, is my mom going to go off? Is my mom going to be like whatever? Is my dad going to be like annoyed? Is he going to be frustrated? Like for me, you know? And so, so much focus, helping people, doing things for people, self-abandonment, so much focus outside of me, so much not knowing where my part is. So much of that, right? Yes. So here are these things, these little things that we think, you know, are just part of that process. But the structure that's in drug court, the structure that's in recovery, the going and doing this, the reading this, the writing this, the talking to this, the you know, how much you be doing of this, you know, the things that we do in recovery, they all give us that more of a structure to be able to say, to be able to gauge, you know, what's normal, what's not normal, what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, what's a character defect, what's an asset. Like, how do I fit in this world to be able to, like, to live, to exhale, to let God lead, and to recognize that, you know, I'm okay today. Like, I'm strong, you know, I'm secure, you know, because whether or not we're physically okay, we have, our head will still feel like it's trying to navigate all that, because it'll still feel like chaos without that kind of structure. But if you give us the paradigm that we need to operate within, what happens is very interesting.
So once that that thought to use was lifted through this power is, it's my saving grace. Once that was lifted and I realized that I was standing at a bus stop going to a class, and I was sober, I realized like there was something happening for me. And so when I would go to class, I was so engaged in the classes because I was finally learning something about me, as opposed to something about something else that was outside of me. And it immediately grasped my attention. And so I was excited about these classes, you know, and I had this one counselor, her name was Miss Lily, and she had a cane, older black woman, and she was just powerful. But she had so much love in her heart, and she would sit me down and talk to me, you know, and she would say, your recovery's like this. You're down here, and this is recovery. She would say, your life was here, and this is where you're trying to go, and eventually it's going to go like this, but you got to stay the course so that it could outweigh. And she would use things like that, and
so you could see it. So
I could see it.
You
Yes.
could measure your progress. You could see where you're at. You have a new trajectory, a new way of saying, this is where I want to go. I want to be better. I want to be healthier. I could see that in you. I could see that in you, how you interact with everybody at Clean Shot when I was over there. The way you were talking to me, like from across the room, the way your presence is, you could tell that you're very much, you're so focused, like you really just want everybody to level up. And you could tell that about you.
Yes.
Because you got that gift. Somebody showed you could level up. You can have this trajectory. And something about visualizing that.
That is correct. And the one-on-one attention that I got, and then the group interaction that I got, and you could see people that weren't so into it, and then they'd have people come in and say, well, only 3 of you guys are going to make it, and to me that was a challenge, and I love being challenged.
Yes.
I said, well, I'm going to be one of them.
Yes.
You know, I'm one of them for sure.
Yes.
And I made that pact with myself. That was an agreement that I made with myself. This was before I read the 4 agreements, you know, and I was like, wow, I made that agreement. So I just started making these agreements with myself, you know, that I was going to do my best.
New agreements, healthier agreements.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And that I was going to take whatever was suggested.
Yeah.
And relapse isn't a part of my story.
Yeah.
Because I was so badly mangled when I got to recovery. I mean,
you were done.
And I wasn't using, so why go back?
Right.
Why go back? Why not just check out what's on this side now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's off me. That monkey's off me. Oh,
that's how I feel too.
It was aggressive.
That's how I feel too.
I mean, I had to have it. I couldn't wake up without it.
That's how I feel too.
When I did pass out,
it was no real solution. It was temporary solution. It was band-aids. It was not doing anything.
Yes.
So and this is one of the things I love about your story too, is that you could see how all these experiences that have been like to you or with you and for you, and ultimately everything's for us, but all these things played a role to teach you in the college of life, so to speak, what you're going to need to know when you end up creating and running a place like Clean Shot.
Yes. I had to forgive myself. That was the biggest thing. I had did so many demoralizing things to myself out there.
Yeah.
That when I had to start taking a look at all of that and own my part in it and take responsibility, you know, like, what was your part in your molestation? I'm like, what? My part? I don't have a part. You know, I was, you know, it would happen to me. And it was like, no, your part is that you didn't say anything. You didn't tell anyone.
Right.
Oh, I never would have thought about that. And so after that, you know, going into these quiet spaces with the God of my understanding, I started to, you know, uncover, discover, and discard those things that didn't mean me well. And then the true forgiveness started to take place. And when I started forgiving myself, it started opening up all these avenues that I didn't know were possible. You know, and I got this strength from within to do whatever it took. If I had to scrub a toilet for $10 an hour, that's what I did. If I had to ride a bus from this side of town to that side of town to work a job because of my record, that's what I did. And I did whatever it took. And so these opportunities started coming to me. And I didn't know that it was because the flow of my energy bringing it to me until later and after, you know, and I'm still discovering more and more about that.
Yeah.
But things started just lining up, you know, people, places, mentors and guidance and spiritual advisors. And I think like the most incredible people.
Yep, absolutely.
One of my friends is a 90-year-old. She has a nonprofit. And she literally can bend forks and spoons with the power of her hand through her belief. And she's 90 years old, and she's still doing recovery.
I love that.
You know, and she died and went to the other side, and now she tells her story. And I got to meet her and bring her to Clean Shot so she could share her story. You know, And the people that I get to
maybe I can have her on the show. That sounds pretty incredible.
Man, like you coming out, you're incredible.
Huh, thank you.
I mean, your story is fantastic, and the way that you tell your story.
Thank you.
You know, it's inspirational for women, you know, because I had to hang up my whole shoes. You know, I had to hang those up. But it was more than just shoes I was hanging up. It was the mindset that I had that I need this person to do that for me, and I need this person to do that for me. And I got to manipulate this and tweak this and make this, you know, like tweaking to get the next hit out the pipe. You know, it's like, you know, burning it down. You know, it's like relating all of those things to what I could possibly have and who I could possibly be, you know, and using the past to my advantage now, you know, turning what I thought was a deficit into an asset, because the way that my mom was when I was little is something that creates who I am today, because I have a great tolerance and patience for people, and they're like, I don't know how you do it. Well, this is how I do it, because I had to tolerate some heavy stuff as a kid.
Like, this is nothing.
And I was groomed for this.
This is nothing.
Nothing.
I mean,
it's
I
natural.
was groomed for this too. Like meeting space in the recovery store and all of that. Like the things I see and experience, and the people I work with that come in who have felonies, who work for me, or are only like 2 months sober or are clean off of drugs. Like, man, you know, being able to like go, you know, honey, and also being able to talk to people and go, you know what? Yep, I did that too. Yep, I did that too. Like there's barely anything that anybody can tell me that I have not either done myself or have experienced in some way, shape, or form with the walk that I walked.
Right.
And you know what's really cool about that? You just end up totally out of fucks. And I gotta tell you, I have compassion for who I felt like I needed to be. You know, and the things I did because I felt like that was who I was, and that's what I needed to do. And so, you know, I want a different experience. I gotta have a different mindset.
Yeah, that's that forgiveness.
So
and that's being gentle.
Forgiveness.
You know, I was so hard on myself. I was so hard on myself. And even today, like sometimes I'll go there and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. No, we're not there. Come back.
I know. Every time I would have some financial insecurity, my mind would be like, oh, you could always dance. You should dance.
Yes.
You should dance. And then I would have to, because I'm in recovery, I'd have to go, God. And God would be like, no. And I'd be like, okay, if you're telling me no, it's because you have a better plan. I'm just going to stop. But I'm just saying, I feel like this is a little bit hard. and whatever like that. And God's like, and I would feel this like awareness coming from my higher power, basically saying, I'm trying to show you more. Like, you could do more. And he's like taught me so much. He teaches you so much. So when did this whole thing start with Clean Shot?
So Clean Shot started in 2015. I met my partner, Tom. He's absolutely amazing. And we came together. I had the vision. He had the property. And we just combined forces. He has, I think he's coming up on 23 years of sobriety.
Wow.
And I, you know, I'm coming up on my 13. And we came together. He actually brought a kid to the other sober living that I was managing. And he said, I want you to come over here and do that with me. Can you come do it with me? And I was like, absolutely. And he showed me what he had. He had this 1-bedroom.
So you were managing a sober living.
I was managing a sober living.
So you already had
for a couple of guys out of California.
And so you already had the training. So you already had the awareness.
What I did was I answered a Craigslist ad for a couple of guys out of California who wanted to do a sober living here. So they brought me to the property. I showed up with my briefcase with nothing in it. I had nothing in it. I was suited with my experience from being in sober living.
Yeah, I love
my experience. That's all I had, and the faith that I had in God, the God of my understanding. And I showed up and I said, yeah, I know what to do. You know, I didn't have a clue.
But intuitively you knew
Intuitively I knew.
Yeah.
And so they left. They're like, well, we're flying out. Call us, tell us what you need. This is what you got. And just tell us what you need. And I was like, what? And they left me there, and I began to, you know, reach out to the people. I reached out to the people that I knew, my spiritual advisors, mentors, Miss Pasita, and she came out and we put it together. And it was just a step-by-step process. So by the time I met my partner, Tom, with Clean Shot,
now you really had stuff in your
I had something to give to him, and he had something to give to me. And together,
isn't that amazing?
It's magic.
Isn't that amazing how God just teaches us as we go what to do? There's so there's so much stuff that, I mean, there's so much stuff that we learn to do that, like.
Yeah, and currently my staff is.
It's just amazing.
My staff is alumni. You know?
People who have gone through it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
My entire staff is from the Clean Shot alumni.
That's so cool.
Yes.
That's so cool. That's really great because they know exactly the issues.
They know.
They know about the laundry. They know about their cycles and people putting things in the wrong thing, and they know all that. Cause I was there at the end where the announcements were made and stuff like that, and I don't know, just looking around going, God, there's something really strong here. You could feel the energy there.
Yes.
I'm really big on energy, and I'm sure you are too, because when you grow up hyper-vigilant, you're sensing energy, reading body language, we become little mentalists.
Yes.
You're like, do. Okay,
yes.
I know exactly what's going on.
Yes, and it's difficult sometimes because, you know, they become my friends, and then we have to do business, and then business and friendship, like, you can't have it. We gotta keep this thing rolling, you know. We have to be able to separate, you know, principles from personalities. It's like, and I practice principles, you know, because the law, I've learned the law and what they mean, and you know, God is operating from that place. And once you really start understanding what your spirit is for and how it operates for you, as opposed to against you, what I thought my whole life, you know, everything's against me, you know, no one loves me, no one likes me, I've never done this, I've never done that, you know, and you start to understand the flow of it and how to keep it in its proper formation, you know, naturally and synchronized, then you get to work with some amazing people, you know. And so it's difficult sometimes because I have to maneuver, you know, my spirit with the business and then the friendship, and it's just like sometimes I go home just literally crying my eyes out because it's so difficult.
I've had to do that too.
But on the other side of it is recovery, because then we get the next new face that comes in.
But you're teaching people
too. It's amazing.
No, like, you know, like the people who have worked at the recovery store and the meeting space, I've had to learn how to manage and be a mentor and be a friend and like all of it, because it's as if we live together. We literally talk every single day and so many times a day, and everybody goes through their proverbial period, you know, like everything happens, life happens, recovery happens, you know, risking their sobriety or their clean time and my sanity. And you know, it's amazing how as we get to, because you had a very, like, you were a very intense voice, I had a very intense voice to counteract the voice that wasn't being used before. But as we are learning through this whole process, God teaches us how to say what we mean what we say, be very matter of fact, want the highest good, run from intuition. And as we become better and better, gentler leaders that are anchored in our recovery, they feel safer in the structure that now we're giving them, and they're learning how to be accountable, how to, you know, because it's not, I know, I feel like I can speak for you because I feel like we have so much in how we are. It feels like it intuitively. That when it is principles before personalities, because when I tell an employee, hey, this is not cool. Like I've had an employee who was being chronically late and missing work, and I felt God, and I leaned in and I said to her, I said, this is your get well job. There's nobody for the job that you want.
Well said.
Is going to be doing this with you.
Well said.
Right now you have a felony. Right now this stuff is going on. This is where you change this. Right here. And it had nothing to do with her worth. You know, I did it with love. She knows I love her. you know, and I do. It's about listen, you can't work here if I can't rely on you. You can't work anywhere you are going to really want to work if people can't rely on you. You make the decision. But like, I felt her hear me, and it was very powerful. So like, we do that. We give that structure. We give that accountability. We show them the trajectory of what their recovery could look like.
Yes.
You know, and then they get to do it. And
there's no better job than working for God.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love
is
that.
Absolutely
love that.
Fireworks, excitement. I mean, you come in to work with your school books, learning about yourself.
Yes.
Because the person coming in, you're looking in the mirror.
Yes.
And so I look forward to those experiences, and I've had some extraordinary mentors and spiritual advisors, and they didn't hold their tongue to me. You know, they told me exactly how it was, you know, for them and who they seen me as. And I had to swallow those things about myself and really come correct with myself.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to withstand what it takes to bring something so magical to so many people. This is not me. This is God's gift to us in recovery.
Absolutely.
Somewhere we can go and be as crazy and quirky and wild and, you know, one-eyed and one-legged and no teeth and, you know, and be yourself, you know, and, you know, come in and do it how you do it. And there's no judgment. You know, and that's a place where you can find out who you truly are. And it's not all those things that you thought you were. It's exactly opposite of what you thought, and always what you thought you could be. Yeah. You know, and so... Which we never knew, and we were selling ourselves short. So exactly. This has been an amazing hour. Do you believe I told you it would go fast? Is it over? It's been an hour. We could talk again. We could talk for hours. So amazing. Because of the subject. And maybe we'll have you on again. Talk about a specific show. That would be Lisa, wonderful. I like hanging out with you. I like hanging out with you too. I really enjoy you. Isn't she so beautiful? Oh my God, look how stunning she is. Like, the camera goes that way. I can't do this. Whatever. So last parting words. You know, if somebody wants to go and be at your sober living at Clean Shot, how do they reach you? So you can reach me at 702-619-9305. My name is EC. That's my personal line, and it is open 24/7. I want to be there for the next suffering and sick. No matter what, you just call me if you have the willingness and you're ready to get honest with yourself and change your life, because it is structure. And there will be rules and things that you have to follow, guidelines to ensure some success. So again, my number is 702-619-9305. Clean Shot! I love that. Yes! Come on down. So, and there are rules, yes, and she has it structured, but the energy and the vibe there's like camaraderie and friendships and focus on solution and people coming in to speak, and that's right. And they have a bus that they'll take people, and there's just so much, and they provide the linens and the beds, and and you just got to bring your body and your hygiene kits. Got to bring your body and your willingness, and if you're ready, definitely do that. So thank you so much for joining us on the Real Recovery Show. And I just want to say we will help you if you need doctors, dentists, birth certificates, IDs, bus passes, jobs. Like, we have access to all of that. Our community partners are fantastic. Vegas Stronger is one. Lisa's Recovery is one. Like, she has the meeting space. I mean, there's just so much out here for us to get better. And to do better. You know, there are no excuses. No. As long as you're ready, we're ready. Absolutely. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on the Real Recovery Show. You can go to themeetingspace.com to see a list of all of our episodes. This is episode 70, and wow, and we're on all the platforms as well, Spotify, etc. 71 is the year I was born. I was born in 70. So thank you so much, and thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you.